Welcome, dear friends, to this Wednesday afternoon, evening session, starting with meditation for about half an hour, and then I'll share some words on Dhamma on the subject of making peace. And we'll have some time at the end of the session for any questions, comments, a bit more interaction. So without any further ado, let's allow ourselves some time now for meditation together. And thank you for joining this time, because we can benefit from sitting together in spirit, together in our shared intention to practice for liberation. So please make yourselves comfortable and closing the eyes, coming into the body, and breathing deep. It's nice to take a few good whole body breaths to bring into energy and uprightness, and to allow the body to start to relax. So some nice deep breaths to begin. And straightening up the spine, giving time and attention to the posture, to notice what is the most upright, comfortable, relaxed posture we can find in this moment. So the body's resting, center of gravity in the middle. If you're sitting cross-legged, it's like sitting on a tripod, knees and butt balancing out. Sitting in a chair, finding the right upright, energized posture, feet touching the ground or a cushion. So just really finding our place and coming into the body in a way of kindness, in a way of wishing this body to be at ease. And with this spirit of well-wishing, we can also bring in thoughts of kindness towards this mind, this heart. May we experience ease. May the heart be at ease. May the mind be peaceful. And this is not to impose anything, but just a wish for well-being, a kind wish. Bringing in kindness at the beginning of the sitting is so helpful to help us to want to be here, to be able to be still, to be willing to wake up, to be aware of what's happening right now. So let's fully allow ourselves to arrive into the body, right here. What is felt? How is it? How is it now? Feeling the energy, the sensitivity of this body, so alive and so impacted. Feeling the skin and how it is so awake to the touch of the cloth, to the touch of the air, to the pressure as we sit. Gravity pulls the body to the ground, feeling the heat or the cold in different parts of the skin. this amazing envelope for the body. So sensitive. Feeling around the edges of the body. And how is it? And we can really energize the mind in this way. Wake up to the feeling in the body. Wake up to the aliveness, the sensitivity. There's always something happening here, isn't there? And actually, as we pay attention to the body, we can realize that there's so much happening. Feelings arising and passing all over the body, like bubbles, rapidly arising and passing. So we can really bring all our attention to bear on this body. Body breathing, body sitting. How is it? And so allowing the attention to be quite focused, to be less interested, less attentive to thinking for a while. Have a break. Instead of giving importance to all the thoughts, just to let them flow on by and not to give them any importance at this time. In this way, allowing the mind to also relax. Directing the attention to the body. Anchoring, settling, bringing the attention here again and again. Examining, investigating, exploring. What is this embodiment? How is it? Observing these dhammas constantly changing, arising and passing. Let's sit together quietly now for 20 minutes or so. I'll ring the gong at the end of the session. So welcome again, dear friends. And I hope those of you who joined the meditation had a very good sit. I'd like to offer some words on Dharma now. I'd just like to start by paying homage to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So I picked a topic for the talk this week, which is making peace. And so I'd like to say a few words on this topic. And when I think of the word peace, in terms of the Buddha's teachings, what really comes to my mind is upekkha, which means equanimity or steadiness or unshakability, calm. And this quality is mentioned in many different contexts by the Buddha in his teachings. It's like a culmination of the enlightenment factors. It's the seventh of the 7 enlightenment factors, and it's the 4th of the 4 Brahmaviharas, and it's the 10th of the 10 parami. And with all of these groups, parami, the virtues, the enlightenment factors, and the Brahmaviharas, the aspects of healthy love. In each of these groups, equanimity is really the sense is that it's the highest, it's the sort of culmination when all these qualities are well developed. Equanimity comes in. And so it's a really important quality for us to consider in our practice. And making peace, we can actually make equanimity in a way, I guess. We can develop equanimity for sure, we can cultivate it. And I consider this to be possible in 2 ways, according to the teachings of the Buddha. One is to bring this quality to mind. You know, when we bring qualities to mind, then we can grow them. And this is quite a remarkable thing. It shows our, in a way, ability to liberate our hearts, our ability to improve our situation. You know, it's in our hands. We have this much agency that we can develop good qualities and we can let go of unwholesome qualities. These aspects of right effort are there for us. And it is interesting how, you know, the Buddha said what we pay attention to will develop and what we turn our attention away from will fade. And that is marvelous, so long as we know how to skillfully direct our attention. We need to be able to make the right choices, don't we? But one good choice is to choose to develop equanimity. And so I think there's definitely a way in which we can grow equanimity simply by paying attention to the possibility of this quality manifesting for us in the mind, in the heart. And so to consider the Brahmaviharas, say, the divine abidings, the different faces of love, the different aspects of love. Metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. Metta, loving kindness; karuna, compassion; mudita, sympathetic joy, rejoicing in the good fortune of others; and upekkha, the calm, the calm that comes through insight into karma, insight into cause and effect, into the reality that all beings are the owners of their karma, born of their karma, related to their karma. All beings abide supported by their karma, by their actions, by their intentional actions. And whatever intentional actions they will do, for good or for ill, of that they will be the heir. Or you could say more, in a way, simply, good actions lead to happy results, and unwholesome actions lead to painful results. And this recognition, just to see, look around us and see that all beings are basically creating their own situations, their own conditions, moment to moment. There's this ability to sort of see the bigger picture. And so equanimity can develop from this kind of way of observing reality. And so, it's a quality that we can grow, we can cultivate, consciously bringing it to mind and observing how the Buddha described equanimity as this understanding of the laws of karma, for instance. We can also develop equanimity in a second way. And the other way we can do this is to observe when it's not present, isn't it? So, what is the opposite of equanimity? The enemy of equanimity is, perhaps we could say, reactivity. So it's the tendency we have to be kind of swayed, kind of drawn in, bombarded with the worldly winds of pleasure and pain. We get swayed. Where there's pleasure, we want to move towards it. And when there's pain, we want to get away from that. This reactivity is the opposite of equanimity. It's a cause of suffering, because we're allowing these worldly winds of pleasure and pain to kind of blast us, to affect us personally, to, in a way, impact our well-being, our peace. The other worldly winds, there are 8 altogether. Pleasure and pain, loss and gain. Losing and gaining. What do we lose? What do we gain? We can only be affected by these winds, these worldly winds, when we feel that we have some kind of ownership of anything. And so there's an element of ignorance here for us. And we can see that. We can see when we are impacted by the sense of anything that can be lost, anything that can be held to and made mine. And, this happens in so many ways, doesn't it? That we lose items, material things, possessions, and also people. And it's very painful for us if we have a good friend and we find out actually that person is very sick, that person will not be around for much longer, how that feels for us, how that impacts us. We can be aware of the pain of loss, the pain of gain, and not make it something wrong, not blame ourselves for feeling badly, but rather appreciate the reactivity that's happening, the worldly winds that are blowing us about. And in the observing of this reactivity, the opposite of equanimity, through the experience of dukkha, suffering, when we are reactive, when we are impacted by happenings in our lives, then we can move in the direction of equanimity. Equanimity will manifest for us as we learn, as we understand the dukkha that's inherent in gain and loss, in this sense that there's anything here that we identify with, that we hold to. And we can't let go just because we think we should, or the Buddha told us to, or we read in the suttas that there's nothing that I can say is me or mine or myself. The way that we come to really understand the Dhamma, these Dhamma teachings, is to experience the suffering that is right there for us when we are experiencing a sense of ownership, of identification with. You know, it's only through this, what's real for us, what's actually happening for us, that we can appreciate these teachings. They're practical, they're immediate, they're inviting each one of us to investigate for ourselves. So the worldly winds of pleasure and pain, of loss and gain, and of praise and blame, we can be bombarded, can't we, by the, attitudes of other people, the ways in which other people give us feedback, whether kind of through words, verbally, or through behavior, through body language or facial expressions, or just attitude. We can pick up, whether we're approved of, whether we're disapproved of, whether we're liked or disliked, whether people enjoy being in our company or they're trying to get away, they find us difficult to be around. And this can have a big effect on us, can't it? And we can take it very personally if someone's upset because of something that seems to relate to something I've said or done, or just my very presence, my very physical form, my gender, my color, whatever it may be. It really has nothing to do with me, but it can have a big impact, can't it, if someone is averse. Or indeed, if we're praised, if we get praise, what happens? What happens in the heart, in the mind? And we can really, all of these experiences, which I'm sure for everyone are relatable, things that have happened, things that do happen for us, we can just use, make the most of all of these kinds of situations to see how these winds blow and how they buffet us and how they push us around and why that happens. What is it that gets all rapturous, thrilled and delighted when words of praise come? What is it that finished and sinks into despair and depression when there's criticism? And just to see, to honestly open to what happens and why it happens. Why? Because I identify with this one. And how can we really see this identification unless through dukkha, unless through suffering, the winds that blow, the worldly winds? And I find it very interesting that, there's a kind of balance, isn't there, to these worldly winds? It's a bit like a pendulum swinging. As much as you get praise, you're liable to have just about the same amount of experience of blame, actually, funnily enough. The last of the worldly winds relate very much to praise and blame. They're having a sort of good reputation, being honoured and revered and respected, getting lots of positive feedback from the world around us, and all being kind of sidelined or diminished in some way, not appreciated, denigrated even. So to have a good reputation or to have a bad reputation. And again, it's just like the pendulum swinging. It's very interesting. People who have a lot of honor and praise of status and high positions, titles and accolades and honors in society can be extremely vulnerable, sensitive, and impacted by the least slight, the least sign of not receiving the utmost respect from those around them. So there's an interesting balance here. It's like a mathematical equation. As much as we enjoy the good reputation, we will notice that there's suffering when that turns sour. And even one person doesn't honor us in the way that we're used to. So we're vulnerable. It doesn't matter whether we're on the receiving end of the positive or on the receiving end of the negative attention, energy, words and actions of others. We're going to suffer. We're going to suffer either way. And so the quality of equanimity is that which is leading us from the swinging pendulum with its extremes, one end of the spectrum to the other. Equanimity leads us to the middle, to the still point in the center where there's no movement. And as much as we're fooled and duped and seduced by praise and a good reputation, by pleasure and by gain, that much we're vulnerable to experiencing loss and pain and disrepute and criticism, blame. So, we want to bring these extremes closer and closer to the center and come to this place, this beautiful place of equanimity, where whatever wind is blowing from whatever direction, there's a stillness here. There's nothing moving here. And when we have this ability to not be fooled by the worldly winds, to see them for what they are, changeable, unpredictable, sometimes stormy, sometimes still, never in our control. They don't really have any bearing on reality. They don't really have any significance in and of themselves. When we have this ability to see more clearly, then equanimity arises. And as we cultivate this quality of equanimity, then the clarity of seeing grows. And so they nourish and support one another. The ability to kind of step back from all the drama, step back from the roller coaster, the highs, the lows, the tragedy, the wonder, all of these extremes, if we can actually just allow ourselves to breathe through and not really get caught up in any of these experiences, then we're coming to the clear seeing. And to see clearly is to see that these things are not personal, isn't it? To see that there's actually nothing here for me. There's nothing here I want to own. There's nothing here I want to hold on to. And so then this quality of unshakability begins to develop. And there's a great sensitivity in this. It's very interesting that the more we develop equanimity, the more we can actually perceive, the more we can open our hearts to the world around us, the more we can have a kind of intimate relationship with the world, because we're not getting knocked around by it. So there's quite an interesting paradox there for me. The near enemy of equanimity is indifference, the Buddha told us. Equanimity has nothing of indifference in it. Equanimity is like an opening to the world of experience, because we can, because we're able to withstand, all the energies of this world. We're not getting swept around by them. And so equanimity enables us to not switch off, not turn away from, not be divorced from the world, but actually to be fully present, to be here, because we can stay very still, be very open, very aware, very attentive to whatever's going on. And the beauty of this is the more we can cultivate this kind of stillness, this kind of witnessing, this ability to see the bigger picture, not to take life personally, then the more these qualities can develop, because we're opening to the world. And everything in the world then is teaching us. And what is it teaching us? It's teaching us to let go, to move towards greater and greater freedom, greater and greater equanimity. I'd like to say a few words about a beautiful sutta that I looked up today called Niramisa Sutta. It's in Samyutta Nikaya. I put the reference in the chat, 36:31. And I just want to pick a little section out of the sutta to highlight, and it's the section on equanimity. And the Buddha's saying Niramisa means something like spiritual. It's the spiritual sutta. And in this sutta, the Buddha says there are 3 kinds of equanimity that can be developed. He said there's equanimity in relation to material things. There's spiritual equanimity. And there's even more spiritual equanimity. So I found this really beautiful and interesting sutta to read. And I'd like to see if I can say a few words about it. So like in many of the teachings of the Buddha, there's a kind of step-by-step progression. So starting with material equanimity, we can develop spiritual equanimity, and then we can develop even more spiritual equanimity. So first of all, the Buddha said there is the possibility to develop equanimity towards material things. Seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, hearing, and thinking. So all that comes to us through the 6 sense doors. We can practice in the kind of ways that I've been talking about, material equanimity. So with our experiences, our day-to-day experiences, can we consider bringing to mind this quality, this aspect of love? Let's remember, it's a very kind and a very gracious and generous way to be, if we're willing to cultivate equanimity for ourselves and for people around us, for all beings around us, because we can bring it in. We can bring in, calm. We can bring in peace to any and every situation and make a difference in this way. And so in relation to what's happening around us, can we consider whatever sight, sounds, smells, taste, touches, whatever thoughts are coming up for us, can we have an attitude of peacefulness around them? And again, as I said at the beginning, there are really two ways to cultivate this. One is through bringing the quality up, bringing it in, adding it to every moment. Peacefulness. May I be peaceful? May I be calm? May I maintain my peaceful state of mind? And the other way is to notice where the reactivity is coming. So notice how we might actually feel anything but equanimous, anything but peaceful, but we can be aware of that. And we don't have to act out. We don't have to speak from a place of reactivity. We don't have to nourish and feed thoughts of reactivity. We can observe them. We can observe reactivity from a place of mindful equanimity. So, whether we're feeling calm or not is not the issue. It doesn't matter, almost, what's actually happening for us. But this quality can imbue and make more peace where there is peace and bring peace where there is turmoil. So we can do this. So in relation to seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking, the Buddha said, this is a good way to proceed, to develop equanimity in relation to all material experience. And then how to develop spiritual equanimity through meditation, to practice samadhi, to keep developing our mindfulness, following the Eightfold Path, living the virtuous life, refraining from harm and making right effort, to develop the wholesome, to let go of the unwholesome, and to meditate then. We can then sit with ourselves. We can start to look inside. We can start to unpack, open the Pandora's box, see what's in here, allow the mind to clear, to purify, to disentangle from suffering. We can do this. And through meditation, we can develop a degree of peace. To a greater or lesser extent, we can notice, can't we, when we meditate, that we're bringing in a calming, peaceful, relaxing experiences start to manifest for us. We start to notice the end of suffering here and there. Some kind of agitation, some kind of turmoil, sit and meditate. Very difficult to sit with, very difficult to be steady with, but we practice, we allow painful feelings space, we give them time, we give them kind attention, and all the negative emotions, the negative mind states have a chance to arise and pass. And we slowly learn, don't we, that what happens when we sit with anger, we sit with frustration, we sit with grief, we sit with fear, negativity. What happens? Well, they start to diminish. They start to fade. They come and go. They don't last forever. They don't define us. And we can experience moments when they're not present. Little mini nibbana moments can happen. And this is where we start to notice there's peace. There's a developing ability to move towards the peaceful. The peaceful becomes more attractive for us. We start to appreciate what it is to experience equanimity. And even if our minds become more relaxed, spacious, clear, and bright, we can experience jhana. We can notice that actually there's really no need to hold on to this body. There's really no need to hold on to these thoughts. We can actually allow the mind to become very focused, very one-pointed, very still and very equanimous, and experience periods of time when there's really nothing but peace, nothing but well-being, nothing but real happiness, physically and mentally. And we can appreciate that nothing lasts, even the most sublimely peaceful meditation will come to an end. But we can notice the effect on the mind, on the heart, of these kind of experiences. Specifically, the fourth jhana is described by the Buddha as the state of uninterrupted, sublime peace, of profound equanimity, nothing moving, absolute calm, absolute stillness, unshakability. He said, like a person who's draped from head to foot with a beautiful, clean, white sheet. Imagine sitting in meditation just covered by a white sheet, nothing moving, completely still, no disturbance. It's hard to describe the jhana in words, but we can appreciate that the Buddha has given us all the guidance that we need to enable us to cultivate very peaceful states of mind, very focused, very still, very equanimous states of mind through meditation practice. And this is something to cultivate. And we can then apply our experiences of one-pointedness, of samadhi, of jhana, and gain great insight into reality. And so from the material equanimity involved in the six senses to the spiritual equanimity, where the six senses have gone, we've let go of them, and we can experience a mind that's freed up and see how the mind in its natural state is so very still, so very calm, so very peaceful. And we can then allow that peace, that equanimity to imbue our lives. And then in this sutta, Niramisa Sutta, the Buddha talks about the equanimity that is even more spiritual than the spiritual. What is that? So this is the most important aspect of equanimity for us. The culmination of this quality is the equanimity that is free from any kind of desire, free from any kind of craving, free from any kind of aversion, free from any kind of ignorance. This is the equanimity of spiritual attainment. And it's very interesting, really, to see that again and again, actually, the Buddha's pointing to, the jhana as very beautiful and insightful and helpful mental developments, ways of taming and training and brightening and illuminating the mind and allowing us to see what is this mind in actuality? What is real? But then we come back to this human realm, this body, this body mind, these senses, and the really more spiritual than the spiritual equanimity, the extra spiritual, super spiritual equanimity is the equanimity of being here and not having a mind that moves in any way in or out of samsara, towards or away from anything in samsara that sees clearly the way things are. And this is, of course, the mind that's free from suffering. This is the mind of an arahant. This is the mind of a realized person. And I love that so many times in the suttas we're given the entire path. In relation to equanimity, in the Niramisa Sutta, we have the entire path. We have the experience of everyday life and how we can develop equanimity here, in these ways, in relation to these experiences through the six senses. And then we have the way in which we can develop equanimity in our meditation practice, and to really refine and experience in a way, the highest kind of equanimity that's possible for this mind. And then how we can direct this, all of this learning, all of this attainment, all of this understanding, to freeing the heart from suffering. And of course, this is the goal of our spiritual practice, is to be free from all the push and pull, to be free from the worldly winds. So we can work with the worldly winds in doing our very best not to react, not to feed reactivity, to notice reactivity and to come out of reactivity. And in the end, we can be quite still within, and we can observe the worldly winds blowing around with great compassion and with great kindness. We can see how all beings are buffeted and traumatized and blown around. And how can we offer something of a safe space for others? Just as we have a safe space within us, can we extend that and support all beings? And of course we can do this. And so the Buddha describes in many places in the suttas the 4 Brahmaviharas practice. These are 4 of the kamatanas, the 40 meditation objects that were recommended by the Buddha. So we can dwell in equanimity. We can cultivate equanimity, we can meditate on equanimity, and then we can radiate equanimity in all the directions, north, south, east and west, above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. Abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will, we can share the equanimity that's here and really literally just let it radiate, just as if there's a lantern in here. There's like a bright light, and we can allow it to illuminate, to radiate forth. And in the same way, the Buddha described this practice of radiating in terms of metta, in terms of loving kindness, in terms of compassion, in terms of sympathetic joy. And you could say that all these qualities, love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, are all really very, very closely related. They all kind of come together. They're like the 4 faces of Brahma, you know. They're the 4 aspects of love. And so each one kind of nourishes the others. And so in our practice of equanimity, of unshakability, of the ability to stay still, like the heart, like the eye of the storm. You know, there can be storms blowing, and indeed there are storms blowing all around us, but there can be this still center point, as I said, like the pendulum that stops swinging. No more time. No more marking time. It's stopped. No more reactivity. From this place, we can radiate forth all these aspects of love, of goodwill, of healing, and of peace. Radiate these qualities into the world. So our practice is, of course, not just for ourselves. It's for all beings. And to cultivate equanimity in these ways, we can consider this and consider this quality, and how it's of great benefit here for us, almost like on a moment by moment basis. You know, there's often some quiver and quake going on in here, isn't there? Like something pleasant, something, even just a tiny hint of attraction to this, that, or the other, or just a smidgen of aversion, irritability, not wanting this, that, or the other. We can be very alert and see where these quivers, these little movements, these tiny aspects of reactivity are almost constantly arising and passing for us, and just bring in like a cool white sheet, you know, to drape it over all of that, just to bring in, remember that we can do this, that we can consider the benefits of calm, we can consider the value of peace, we can consider like the healing energy of all these Brahma Viharas, and bring them in for ourselves. And of course, then we're bringing them in for all beings and benefiting the liberation of this heart and also the well-being of all. So these are just a few words about making peace. Like it's something we can actually do, and something obviously worth doing, and consider how we can offer peace into this world, moment by moment, day by day, drop by drop. Anyone?
Anurayam Dhammatalk sadhu karam Namaste sadhu sadhu sadhu
So thanks again, everyone, for your patient listening. I'm just going to have a look at the chat and see if we have any questions or comments to share. Thanks for those who've written something in the chat. Karen and Kim, John, Canan, Rick, Adrienne, Yankee Apple, TJ. Hello, everyone. Okay, got a question from TJ. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. TJ says, does the right concentration, samma samadhi, in the Noble Eightfold Path have to be 4 absorptions or jhana? No, it doesn't. Thank you for asking that, because there's a kind of spectrum of this quality of samadhi, of concentration, in terms of our experience. And we can notice, how is it for us? How is the ability to focus the mind on any particular object? And we can benefit from making the effort to try and direct the attention in such a way that we're kind of like narrowing it down to some extent, like a kind of beam of light, and shining the beam of light on whatever we choose as an object of meditation, such as the breath or the body, some part of the body perhaps. This is really valuable, and we can be aware that when we practice in this way, we're developing samadhi, we're developing concentration. There are many different ways to practice samadhi. There's a way that I've just described of kind of focusing the attention. And another way is to really open the attention very wide and wake up to what is happening right now. Wake up to what is experienceable in each moment. So kind of more broad and diffuse aspect of still focused attention, but it's on the full spectrum, the full picture. Depends a lot on the person as to what works for you, and we can experiment. And the jhana come about when the causes and conditions are suitable, when there's peaceful circumstances, peaceful surroundings, perhaps the ability to be on retreat, a mind that's not being distracted by all sorts of worldly cares and concerns, where we can sit, we can spend time in quiet, often good to be in solitude, or in a group who are practicing, and just meditate. And when we allow ourselves, when we have the opportunity, the luxury really, the privilege really, of having extended time for meditation, then the mind will very naturally develop stillness, because it's, in a way, it's natural for the mind to do this, given a chance. If the other path factors are in place, if we have a mind that's free from remorse because we're living a virtuous life, if we have a sense of making the right kind of effort and understanding what we're moving towards, what is the direction here, to have right view, to have right intentionality, if all these path factors are in place and we sit and meditate, the mindfulness is there for us and the stillness will come. And it's just a matter of time, really. And so people experience all different degrees of samadhi. Let's consider it to mean something like stillness, like peacefulness, like a sense of relaxation. And it can go from the most subtle sense of feeling a little bit more relaxed, all the way to really very profound states of stillness and letting go. That the Buddha called the jhanas, and described for us in the suttas in many different places in the teachings. So I hope that's helpful, TJ. Thank you for asking, because that really clarifies, I'm sure, for a lot of people, what is Samma Samadhi? And I've only said a few words about it. Please consider investigating further. What did the Buddha say about Samma Samadhi, right concentration? Okay. Hello to P. Upasika Metika. Hello. Chittapala. ABC. Karen. Shadow of Label. Okay, ABC. Thank you. ABC says, I wanted to know, what is the practice of appropriate attention for beginners? Thanks. Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Okay. Well, the Buddha taught, many different kind of ways of meditation, but what I would recommend for someone who's just beginning is to tune in and listen to guided meditations. Unfortunately, nowadays, that's very easy to do. So to, get online and listen to different people, different teachers offering meditation guidance. And you'll have many different experiences of trying out different ways of paying attention. I'd also recommend to actually try and do retreat. I don't know how possible that is for people here and there nowadays, but there are opportunities to take oneself and go to a retreat center or a monastery and to be with others who are meditating and to learn more about meditation in a very kind of suitable, protected environment, peaceful environment. So if you have any opportunity to take some time out, go do a retreat and learn about meditation in a good and structured way, where you can really give time and attention to learning how to meditate. The other thing I would say, just as a very simple instruction for right now and for a daily practice is to make time every day. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, as long as you can, really, morning and evening, if possible, to actually sit in a quiet place, set a clock, and make a determination that you're not going to do anything else for that period of time. And to get into the habit, get into the routine of meditating each day in this way, and to simply sit and allow the attention, encourage the attention, bring the attention to the breath. So noticing the breath, noticing where the breath is felt, and just really getting interested in observing the process of breathing, natural breathing. Like, we don't make it any different. We're not trying to breathe in a certain way, just observing what's already happening quite naturally without any kind of action on our part. So that is a wonderful object of meditation, and almost, I think, probably the commonest technique or method that was given by the Buddha, anapanasati, to observe the in and out breath, mindfulness of breathing. So those are just a few words, and I hope they can be helpful for you. And I really wish you well with your meditation, and would just encourage everyone to give all the time you can to meditation practice, because the benefits are impossible to overstate. Okay. Okay, thank you, Shadow of Label, for your comments. I'm not seeing a question there, but I'm just really taking in what you said. Thank you. Okay. Kim. Yeah. Kim shares with us, what's difficult for me is when I've had a good stretch of equanimity and then I slip back and everything suddenly sucks. I try to remember impermanence, but it doesn't help. Yeah, thank you very much for this, because from the heart, I'm sure we can all relate to what you're saying. It's like that, isn't it? I mean, I'm so glad you bring this in, because, you know, this is how it is for us on the path. It's kind of a sense of like 3 steps forward and maybe 4 steps back today, and then 2 forward and maybe 1 back. And it goes like this. It's not we were saying the other day here at the monastery, it's not like a direct line. It's not like a straight and narrow, simple road to Nibbana. No, the path has this quality of being rather unpredictable. And we could say, not exactly in a straight line. So, you know, please don't lose heart, because actually, you know, when things are going well and the mind is very calm and peaceful, that's great. But when it ends, as it inevitably does, and we're thrown into some kind of reactivity and the worldly winds are howling around us, let's remember that this is an opportunity for us to really develop on the path. So these are the times when all we have to do, you know, is to breathe and to be mindful of that, just to be still, just to be aware, 1 breath at a time, is a magnificent practice, is something very noble, is something that can really break through a lot of suffering for us. So let's remember not to judge our practice by how we feel or how it seems to be going, or whether there's peace or there's not peace, because those things in the end are not so important. What's really important is the steady application, the determination, the patient endurance, the willingness just to keep coming back to mindfulness, coming back, paying attention, meditating, being mindful in our everyday life. And whatever's going on, Let that be our object of mindfulness. And we can do that. And so to really take heart, and not to judge life by the ups and downs, judge life by the ability to remain aware, to have a consistency, a continuity of practice. This is doable. So really wish you well with that. And thank you very much for bringing that in. I appreciate that, Kim. Okay. I just want to share this with you. Rick, I love and actively practice the Brahma Viharas. I've experienced years of abuse. Meditating on and offering loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity to these family members has been a great help. Recently, I've been practicing equanimity by practicing remaining at peace despite being misunderstood and misrepresented. Do you have any reflections? Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, because, yeah, how powerful and how beneficial it is to be able to even consider bringing evenness of mind, non-reactivity, equanimity to bear when we are feeling that we're misunderstood, there's injustice, there's prejudice here, there's unfairness. How easy it is for us to get pulled down by these things and to react and to thereby, cause more suffering, at least for ourselves, if not for those around us. So, this is the time. It's very interesting to me that I've really come to learn through the practice of the Buddha's teachings that we don't have to go out and fight battles in the world to make it better, to make it a better place. We can do that, and people who do that are good people, and good-hearted, and often make a difference. But truly, the way to really change the world is to work with this heart. And where there's reactivity here, where there's a feeling of righteous indignation, where there's wrongdoing, and we're able to be present for that and not make more suffering, allow peace to come here, and from here to see how we can influence those around us. This is the way to change the world. We can only change the world from a place of peace. If we bring in fire to the fire, the conflagration will just go on and on and on. And actually, this is what we've been doing for countless lifetimes. We have to work to put out the fire. And so what you're describing, Rick, is really just this way of being willing just to be with what is painful, to be with reactivity and not to let it overwhelm, but rather to work with it here and make peace here. And then the world changes for sure. Yeah, thank you so much. And I wish you well with that. Great work. Okay, Rick, thank you. Shadow of Label, thank you for your comments. Okay. Just going through to see if there's any other questions. Okay, I think that's good. It's perfect timing. So thank you all so much for your wise attention and all good wishes for your practice. Bye for now.